Hi, it's Claudia, and in this video, I wanted to talk to you about the second love language from the Five Love Languages book by Dr. Gary Chapman, and the second one is called Quality Time. So this is so interesting. I have read this book about a year and a half ago, and I have loved it. It presented things to me that I never thought about before, and I was like, okay, so there is a right way to love people, and here's what you do with it. And basically, the way that I took it was a bit like technical, and I was kind of expecting that if I just do this, if I love my husband in the way that the book says, which did make sense to me, then he will love me back in the way that I needed him to. So I didn't really look at it so much as a relationship. I looked at it kind of like a transaction. We're like a vending machine where you put in the coin, so you love the other person, and then you press the button and you expect the thing to come out. But of course, this is not true. And I'm sure you already noticed this because people are far too complex. We're not just one-dimensional where we have one button and we do the right thing and then the other thing comes out. So the thing about this book is I read this. So this was one of the books that I read because my husband and I, so we were very happy together. But sometimes I got triggered because of my complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And that led me emotionally to a place in the past that was traumatic to me. So I was having an overreaction to the current situation. And my brain was flooding me with a lot of anxiety and overwhelming emotions because it was its only way to protect me. So for me to be protected from these situations, my brain would overflood me with negative emotions so that I either eliminate these situations, these arguments, or that I avoid them. So this just happened year after year after year. So we were about, I think 8.5 years, 9, something like this, into our marriage. And these arguments did not progress. So we kept arguing about the same thing over and over and over again. And I started reading books from that perspective. So from the perspective of complete dependency on other people, this is what I thought the relationships were. A give and take, or a give and receive, but in a dependent way. So I give to get and the other person gives to get, but I wasn't giving from a place of fullness. So it wasn't love. I thought I was, but once I got better, I realized that I wasn't doing it. So I wasn't giving out of place of love because I was giving to receive love because I didn't have any. So this is why in the very beginning, this book actually kind of backfired on us because, as I said, I was actually in regards to quality time. So when I heard about this concept, I was like, okay, maybe this is the answer, because my husband and I were pretty unintentional. So we were fortunate enough to spend a lot of time together, which we loved doing, but it was never intentional. We never decided, okay, let's go on holiday, let's go out, let's do this. It was more according to our feelings in the moment. Oh, I feel like something sweet, let's make a cake or something like this. So it wasn't coming from our decisions, it was driven by our feelings. So because of these arguments that happened, I think that they were pretty random. Random in the sense that they were unavoidable, but they were specific to the traumas that I had experienced as a child, and they just kept happening. So we just kept arguing because it was all about control, and my standpoint was I need to stop my husband. I need to explain to him that this is really hurtful to me, and I need to talk to him, and I need to help him to understand that he needs to stop doing this thing that is bothering me. So I tried for, I think about 8.5 years or so, and then I started reading books. I was like, it took me a really long time, obviously, to figure out that these methods of just talking incessantly about the same thing and trying to explain the same thing, it didn't work. So then I started reading books about marriage, and I became obsessed with this book. And I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. So quality time is about getting to know the other person. So spending time with them. But I took it in the other direction. I was like, okay, we are going to schedule 1 hour every day, and we are going to, again, press a button. But it doesn't work like that, right? Because we can't just sit down and then start talking or start sharing things. Like, it has to be like a good setting. And we have to we have to spend some time affirming the other person and loving them so that they feel safe to open up to us through quality time and quality conversation. So this was my plan. Okay. So we have all this time together. We're going to schedule 1 hour every day. And then, of course, we only did this for a few days because we had nothing to say because it was so forced. So I'm just hoping to help you to understand that. And I have seen this because I started reading books about marriage, and I think most people do, when things are pretty bad, when things are looking like they're not getting better, and maybe they're not, like, it's a balance, like, okay, there are some good things, but there's a lot of bad things. So I wasn't looking for improvement over how well we were doing. I was looking to fix some things. And then with this mentality, I tried to force things into our marriage. So I tried to spend quality time because I ended up thinking, like, maybe this is the piece that we're missing. Maybe if we spend this time together, then we will stop arguing. But this is kind of like a computer program, which if this, then the other one, or else. So I was thinking, if we spend quality time together, then we'll be happy and we'll stop arguing, or else we'll get a divorce. But that's not how relationships work at all. So we just need to kind of like relax into it. And this is a really important, I think, part of every relationship. So some people indeed love it the most when you spend time with them, when you get to do things together. And you make crafts together, or you go for a walk, or you go shopping and stuff like this. But the thing is that this cannot be forced. So before someone feels safe enough to open up to us, we need to love them, and we need to put in the work to create a safe environment. So this is really important when it comes to quality time, that we don't force it. Because when I did this and when I started reading the book, I was like, okay, let's do this. So I was very determined and very solution oriented, and I was kind of completely missing the point, because this is meant to be a good quality time together, not just any kind of quality and not just any kind of time. So in this regard, so now we are going to look at a scripture that is telling us how God is spending quality time with us. So this is Hebrews chapter 13, verses 4 to 6. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? So in this scripture, we find out God tells us that He is always there for us. He will never leave us and He will never forsake us. Meaning that I'm not exactly sure how, like the technicality of it, because God is not a created being. So created beings are physical or non-physical. So we're physical, obviously, and we live in a physical world, but somehow God is outside of our dimension and, well, all of our dimensions, but He is able to transcend it, to transcend our world and to be with us. So whenever we say, dear God, I have this problem, He is there and He hears us. So He is always there for us physically. And then forsake means to turn away His heart from us. But God is telling us that He will never do that. So no matter what we do or what mistakes we make, God will never turn His back on us. And we can always go to Him and ask Him for help or for guidance or for whatever. But the thing is that, so God is always available to us, but we need to make ourselves available to God. And we need to take, just like with people, we need to schedule, but not in a controlling way. So we need to understand relationships, and we need to understand that we have to spend quality time with the people that we care about. Of course, if we're talking about an acquaintance, so not someone that is really influential in our lives, then maybe we don't. But especially with God and with our spouse and our children and our friends and our family, if we can and we want to, we need to spend quality time with them. But as I said, so not force it. So schedule it in a way that, so for example, in my case, the first thing that I do in the morning is I spend 1 hour after I wake up talking to God. So I like to do this because it's setting me up for success for the rest of the day, because I have told God everything that's in my heart and He has guided me and He told me what to do, or He's nudging me in some sort of a direction, and then I don't have to worry the rest of the day. And in this regard, we have to consider spending quality time getting to know our spouses in an intentional way, but not in a controlling way. So basically, where I went wrong was that I was trying to do it every day at this hour like a button. And it's not like that. So we need to schedule the time in a way that, for example, if they have like a big project, or if you have a big project, then clearly that is going to be stressful. Well, maybe not clearly, but it's going to keep you busy, right? So then you don't want the quality time to start feeling like a chore, but instead you want to schedule it, like, for example, maybe in the weekend or something. So just take into consideration all the moving parts, or as many as you can, because we are multidimensional and we're not just, you press one button. That does not work, I can tell you. And I've tried it. It did not work at all. So then we're going to look at a second scripture, and this is talking about Jesus, and He is talking about the importance of quality time. So this is Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. Now it happened as they went that He, Jesus, entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed Him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard His word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached Him and said, Lord, Do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me." And Jesus answered and said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." So in this story, in this parable, I don't know if it's a parable, I think it's a story about Jesus's life and his ministry. So we find these two sisters, and one of them is I don't think she's ill-intentioned. I mean, she's trying to make it comfortable, and she's trying to be a good host for everyone, because Jesus, I think, is living with them for the time being while he's in that village and he is teaching everyone. But she has placed the mundane things and the chores above spending quality time with him, because he was their teacher, but I'm assuming that he was also their friend. So she is thinking about cleaning the house or doing the chores or making the food, which is important, but it's not above the quality time that we're meant to and that we should want to spend with the people that we care about. I think that this is something that sometimes, I mean, because we all have our own lives, but none of us are like that. I think there's a quote, something like, "No man is an island," meaning that we all need each other. And in order to have successful relationships, we need to get to know the people around us, the people that we love. So it's important, because also as we read a book or we see a video or we interact with someone or we study something, we evolve in our lives, we mature and we grow, and then we want to keep track in a way of this evolution. So especially with our spouses, it's important, and of course with our children and our friends and everyone. So it's important that we keep in touch, so to speak, and we keep scheduling this time together where we just catch up and we share with them the things that are important to us. But another thing that I wanted to mention is that we do not use this time to, which is something I did a lot of before. So this is not about us, this is about the other person. So we're trying to get to know the other person, and we're trying to make ourselves known to the other person. So this is not about the other person helping us or us helping them to process their emotions. So this is about having conversations, because there was a time where I thought that this was quality time. This was before I read the book. So I thought that spending time with my husband meant that I could, for example, just have him sit there while I vented to him about what someone else did to me. That's not quality time. So that's actually not something that's useful or helpful. Venting is not really a thing. It just seems like it's some kind of a tool to help us, and maybe it does to a very small degree, but there are far better emotions processing tools than venting. And from what I have experienced and seen and observed, venting can actually be harmful to the other person if we're venting about them. So I just wanted to make this distinction that these are two different things. So now I wanted to share with you just a little bit from the book. So from this chapter of quality time, and I selected a few things that I found really interesting and I'm hoping helpful to you. So here is the first quote where the author is explaining what he means by quality time. By quality time, I mean giving someone your undivided attention. I don't mean sitting on the couch and watching television together. When you spend time that way, ABC or NBC has your attention, not your spouse. Quality time does not mean that we have to spend our time together, that we have to spend our together moments gazing into each other's eyes. It means that we are doing something together and that we are giving our full attention to the other person. The activity is a vehicle that creates the sense of togetherness. Quality conversation is quite different from the first love language. Words of affirmation focus on what we are saying, whereas quality conversation focuses on what we are hearing. And this is from later from the book, from the chapter. I have observed two basic personality types. The first I call the Dead Sea. It receives, but it does not give. On the other extreme is the babbling brook. For this personality, whatever enters into the eye gate or the ear gate comes out of the mouth gate, and there are seldom 60 seconds between the two. So this last part I wanted to talk to you about because this is where I started off with my husband. So basically this was about the way that we grew up and these emotional coping thingies that we picked up on. So they were not healthy because nothing was intentional and neither one of us was taught how to process our emotions or how to communicate or how to listen, any of these things. So I ended up processing my emotions by literally talking about everything with my husband or with my friends or everyone. So I was not able to sit and think by myself. And especially if something negative had happened to me, I had to immediately tell someone about it. So it was kind of like, you know, the little kids in kindergarten or in the first grades when, you know, someone hurts you and then you say, I'm going to go and tell mommy. So this is kind of how I was doing it. I wasn't able to sit with the feelings and to think about it and to calm myself down and to forgive the person and to look at the situation in a balanced way. But I was overwhelmed by my emotions, and then I would feel compelled to tell someone. And I think it's a possibility that maybe this personality type, this babbling brook, could be this. So maybe it's not 100% natural. Maybe it's just some sort of a coping tool that people sometimes do this. So this is just a theory. I have not researched anything. This is just a thought that I had. And of course, I would love to encourage you to think about it, the way that you process things and the way that you interact with other people and why that might be. And is it healthy or not? Because I have discovered that most of my behaviors were totally unhealthy. So this was me. So I was the babbling brook. I was talking about everything, and I guess you could say that I had some hints that it wasn't working because, for example, let's say that I had some kind of negative thing with someone, a negative conversation. And then the first thing I would have to tell my husband. So I felt compelled. But then that was never enough. So it wasn't enough to talk it out and then move on. I needed to tell my other friends and I needed to talk to each one of them about it. And then again, that's not quality time. I was trying to basically use these people around me to help me to feel better from whatever had happened to me until I learned about emotional skills. And now I can do that on my own. And then sometimes I don't even need to mention anything that had happened or thoughts that I had or whatever. But before, it was almost, I don't know, it must have been 90% of it at least. So I just kept telling people all kinds of things. And I'm assuming that's tiresome. And then my husband, he was the Dead Sea. So he was just used to listening, and he was not really used to talking. He was not used to expressing his own opinions. And then, unfortunately, I made him feel bad about it, although at the same time, I didn't really give him time to express his opinions because I was talking all the time. So once I started developing these emotional skills myself, and I was able to process my emotions and the things that happen in my life on my own, then I no longer needed to incessantly talk to him. So then he had the space and the time to start expressing his own thoughts and his own opinions. And this is a really important part of quality time because we want this to be relatively balanced. So we're not trying to force the other person if really they don't talk that much right now. It's not about forcing them to do it suddenly, kind of like how I started off with this, applying this book in the beginning. So it's about creating a safe environment and a loving environment for them. And this is not just through the quality time, but through all the love languages, so that they start having like room to breathe and room to be themselves and room to express themselves or not, because we are no longer applying pressure on them to do something or to do something else. So it's just about giving them the space and the mental space and the emotional space for them to start figuring out how they want to relate to us. So initially in my relationships, even though I didn't mean it and I definitely was not aware of it, I was putting a lot of pressure on other people to be there for me when I needed them, because I was not able to cope on my own. And then for them to respond in a way that I needed them. So I had a lot of dependent relationships on other people, and I might have contributed to them becoming dependent on me. I'm not really sure because we haven't talked about it, but this is not healthy. So the idea of the love languages is for us to connect with the source of the source of love, which is God. And then from that place, and it says somewhere in the Bible that God is making our cups, our love tanks, to overflow. So we are so full of love that we can then allow the other person to be themselves and to start reciprocating in their own time. So this is not about never again wanting anything from anyone else, but it's also not about controlling them, making them reciprocate or anything like that, because we no longer need it. So we are taking care of ourselves and our emotional tanks, all of our love tanks, and then from that place we express love to other people. So the action steps for this video are, of course, to choose to spend some quality time with your spouse or a loved one where we are actively trying to get to know them, but again, without any pressure. So this is not about today at 5 o'clock we're doing this. This is more like, I would say maybe a weekly thing that you might want to consider, like once per week, twice per week, whenever the opportunity arises, but don't force it. Because what has happened, so when I stopped forcing my husband to respond and to give me what I needed and to agree with me, and he started expressing his own opinions and he was free to do that, what happens now is that we don't schedule our quality time. Maybe sometimes if like we want to go for a walk or something. But other than that, it's just we're both available, but we don't need it. So if he finds something interesting, then he comes and shares it with me. And I do the same. But it's no longer a computer programming thingy trying to run our lives because I thought this was the answer to having a happy marriage, which it can't be. control is never the answer. So I would love to encourage you to choose to spend time with someone. So it could be your husband or your children or your friends or your family. So basically, whether, let's say that you go shopping together, that's great, but take the time to ask them about how they're doing and what's going on and how they feel, what they think about things, without you needing or us needing to say something about ourselves or to give our opinions or to give advice. So we talked about the conviction before. So if they're asking for advice, definitely give it. But if they're not, just spend time listening and getting to know them. And of course, we can ask questions like, well, what do you think about this? Or why do you think that is? But not in an interrogation style and not to get something out of them, but just to get to know them. And then the next video, we will be talking about the third love language, which is receiving gifts, which is also very important in our relationships. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.